Hey everyone, this is Patrick, and I am back with another edition of Heavy Therapy, doing some more first reactions, metal releases. This edition, I am actually going to cover two weeks of releases. As we all know at this point, Friday is the day of new releases, though there are some releases that are sprinkled out on Mondays, any basically any day of the week, but Friday is is the predominant release day for new albums. So I'm going to cover the releases that I listened to from 5/19 and from 5/26. So first up then is Frozen Soul with their album Glacial Domination out on Century Media. This was a very big release in the underground metal scene. This band has kind of taken the death metal world by storm. They were on the latest issue of Decibel, and yeah, they're on a big independent label. So on this album, they give you 11 tracks, 42 minutes, and 23 seconds of music. And so for me, Bolt Thrower is one of the most overrated modern old school death metal bands. Now, understand that I don't think that that makes them bad. I don't think they are a bad band. I've heard really great things about them live. None of their music has stuck with me that I've listened to, including this album. What you get is plotting, mid to slow tempo, bolt thrower worship, and every now and then you hear they transition into some pretty brutal death metal riffs. Uh, Production falls flat for me. There's no riffs that really stick out to me. There are some melodies that creep in towards the second half of the album that are a little bit stronger than the tracks from the side A of the album. But yeah, I gotta say, yeah, for me, this is a 6 out of 10. Next up, we have Chronicle with Where Chaos Thrives. This album came out on Mighty Music. This band is from Denmark, and they give you 7 tracks, 43 minutes, and 32 seconds of music. This is sort of a blackened melodic thrash, so they throw a lot of different styles at you. Um, I hear some early In Flames influence. There are some thrash, guitar squeals, and riffs. This sounds like metalcore at times as well. So fans of lots of variety yet cohesive sounding albums that feature black metal, thrash, heavy metal, metalcore, you should check this out. I am giving it a 7 out of 10. Next up is Blindfolded and Led to the Woods and their album Rejecting Obliteration. This album is out on Prosthetic Records. This is also their first album on Prosthetic Records. This band is from New Zealand, 10 tracks, 45 minutes of music they give you this time around. And I've never heard of this band. Apparently their early style is more deathcore style. I did decide to give this a listen, and I liked this a lot. My initial thoughts were this: napalm death style, steampunk, technical, avant garde death metal with some post death metal as well. This is like if A Trey B-list, if you basically think of the A Trey B-list album on acid last year, and then someone puts on the red chord and you're lying on the floor because you took 2 tabs and you weren't planning to. This is trippy, progressive, dynamic, interesting, yeah, progressive death metal. If you want to give it a shorter genre tag, but really like these songs. Track 8, Funeral Smiles. I think of Carcass plus Deftones plus Suffocation. Very cool stuff in my book. So I'm gonna give this an 8.1 out of 10. Up next, and now we are at this past week, Olkoth with At the Eye of Chaos. Everlasting Spew release, bands from Columbia, South Carolina. They give you 8 tracks, 35 minutes, and 11 seconds of music. This is, immediately you'll recognize the style as sort of a dissonant, old school death metal style that combines Immolation and Nile. You get technical, dissonant, aggressive, heavy songs and album. Sometimes I hear cattle decapitation and revocation as well. So if any of that sounds appealing, definitely check this one out. I give this one an 8 out of 10 as well. Nice Paulo Girardi album art as well. Next up, another really big release. I have the title wrong on here. It should say Immortal, War Against All. This band's from Norway. They give you 8 tracks, 38 minutes of music, and did not like this album very much at all. The first 2 tracks are okay, then it gets kind of boring. The instrumental's okay, but yeah, just didn't like this very much. I give it a 6.9 out of 10. The reason I couldn't give it a 7 is just Immortal, Demonized. It's not the full band anymore. We all know the story, but Immortal has to do better than something like this. So this is a 6.9 out of 10 for me. Okay, this was a surprise listen for me. This is Kafsnateni with Upal out on Willowtip Records from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Willowtip, I tend to think of dissonant death metal, technical death metal. This is extremely interesting. Mostly, I guess black metal would be the foundation of it, but man, I hear thrash, I hear death metal, I hear some sort of noisy mathcore type elements in this album. But so avant-garde, dissonant black metal. I think of Imperial Triumphant, I think of Doldrum, I think of Altar. This is blistering yet groovy, fun. Perfect length, which is 39 minutes of music. It's not perfect. There are certain elements of this that just kind of fell flat, including the last song isn't one of my favorites, but the middle of the album is extremely strong. You hear some Middle Eastern melodies as well. One of my favorite albums that I've heard this year, more or less, considering it's above an 8.5, right? It's going to be at this point, this makes it pretty solidly in my top 15 or so, let's say. Gave it 2 listens and I like it a lot. So yeah, 8.6 out of 10 for me. You know that band Hoplite, I believe is how we try to pronounce it in English. This is kind of going for that, but I think this is a lot better. The vocals aren't my favorite either at first, but they've grown on me. Fans of Dark Throne might appreciate the vocals, but yeah, just a good, fun listen. If you like technical, fast music that keeps your mind racing, keeps you guessing what the transition is gonna sound like. Really good album, 8.6 out of 10. And these are the albums that I've listened to from the last 2 weeks so far. Talk to you all soon. See you in the comments, and remember to stay heavy.